ॐ वेदऋषयः समारभ्य वेदान्ताचार्या मध्यमाः योगीरां सुरत्कुमारपर्यन्तं वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् रत्नाकराधौतपतां हिमालयकिरीटिनीं ब्रह्मराजऋषिरत्नाढ्यां वन्दे भारतमातरम्. Hinduism is not a religion but a way of life. Usually people speak of different religions. Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikhism, all are called religions. For every religion, there are some preceptors. In some cases, there are founders of religion, and there are scriptures prescribing the way of worship. And they have also got gods to be worshipped, method of worship. All these we find in different religions. But in the case of Hinduism, we do not have any concept of a supreme single God who alone is to be worshipped, and a supreme scripture which alone is to be followed. Islam speaks about Allah, the God in the heaven is named as Allah. Christian speaks about Father in the heaven, and Islam speaks about Prophet Muhammad who founded that religion, and they have got their Quran, Hadith, the scriptures which are to be strictly followed. Christianity speaks about Jesus, who is supposed to be the founder and son of the God, and Bible, the scripture which is to be very strictly adhered to. And all these Semitic religions which have come up in Semitic regions, they have a fanatic outlook. This is the only way. You cannot go out of this way. And if you go out of this way, you are condemned. It is blasphemy to violate the dictums of the prophet or the founder or the scripture, etc. This is the case with all Semitic religions. But in the case of Hinduism, there is no founder of Hindu religion. It has come down from the Vedas since times immemorial. It has come down from the Vedas. When the Vedic rishis appeared, last time we saw on the banks of river Sindhu and Brahmaputra and the holy rivers, the great rishis founded a Vedic civilization. Nobody knows the exact date of birth of those great preceptors, the period of their existence. In different periods they have existed. Vasishtha, Vamadeva, so Vyasa, all these different gurus They have come up in different periods. There is no fixed date of beginning of our Vedic culture. In the case of Islam and Christianity, they know the date on which the Prophet came, Jesus appeared. All these are recorded. But we do not have any such recorded evidence about the preceptors, their advent, their date of advent. Hinduism is not a religion. It is not founded by any preceptor. I said it is a way of life given by these great preceptors. As far as God, salvation, etc., last time also we saw in the last lecture, Hindus do believe in a God, an ultimate reality which created the entire universe, which sustains it, and which also dissolves. All that appears must disappear one day or other. That is the law of nature. So, the Hindu way of life, they have got some symbolic representations of the creator, the sustainer, and the dissolver. We saw that Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. But our Hindu preceptors are very clear that these are all just symbolic representations for the purpose of the understanding of the devout. In reality, there is only one ultimate reality or existence, which is called consciousness. The Vedic rishis called it Chit Shakti. And the Vedic rishis proclaimed, from out of the Chit Shakti, Chita is consciousness, Chit Shakti Chetana Rupa, Chetana Shaktir Jadatmika. This is what the Vedic rishis proclaimed. That consciousness, it manifests in the form of energy. That is creative, sustaining and dissolving energies. So Chit Shakti, from that comes the Chetana. And out of energy, the material world has come into existence. When they say Brahma created the world, it means that Chit Shakti, it has created this universe. Modern science, physics especially, very emphatically proclaims that the entire universe is nothing but consciousness. Consciousness evolves into energy, and from out of that energy, this material world comes. Our Hindu seers and sages have also discovered this truth. Today, the modern physics, Hawkins and others, they are proclaiming about consciousness and the manifestation of the material world out of consciousness, etc. But this was known to our Vedic rishis long, long ago. And they also gave theories of evolution. Today, in Western philosophy, we have evolutionary theories given by various scientists and scholars. Darwin's theory of evolution is there. These theories of evolution have come into the Western world in the recent period. So many scientists and scholars have given it. But our Vedic rishis, long, long ago, in the Sankhya Shastra, they very emphatically proclaimed about the emergence of the universe out of the consciousness. the stages in the process of evolution. Chit Shakti Chetana Rupa, Chetana Shakti Jadatmika, the material world. The first evolute out of this consciousness force is Akasha. Akasha is Shabda Brahma, sound. We call our All India Radio Akasha Vani. Why? Because the sound vibration, it constitutes the broadcast of a radio, and the sound is associated with Akasha, Akasha Tattva. Akashat Vayuhu. When the sound vibrations arise, there is vibrations in the atmosphere, wind is created. Akashat Vayu. And we all know that modern science tells us that there is oxygen, hydrogen, etc. Hydrogen burns, oxygen helps in burning. So naturally, out of Vayu, Vayor Agnihi, fire emerges out of wind. Where there is wind, that naturally the fire also comes. So, Akashat Vayuhu, Vayor Agnihi, and wherever there is fire, heat, the vapor is generated. Akashat Vayu, Vayor Agni, Agnir Apaha. From out of Agni, water arises. Modern geologists also agree that the whole earth, the land that we find on the earth, it has emerged out of sea. The sea has drawn back and the land has emerged. We have got continents, various continents and islands, etc. It is out of water that this formation. Akashat Vayu, Vayor Agni, Agnir Apa, Apa Prithvi. Prithvi is earth. Earth comes out of water. This is the process of evolution according to our ancient seers. Prithivya Oshadayaha. There are so many varieties of life, especially the plant kingdom. The ordinary grass, the creepers, the mighty trees, all these Oshadis, they come out of Prithvi. And in the process of evolution, after the emergence of these Oshadis or woods, forests, creepers, etc., various forms of life start emerging. First the amoeba and then small worms, crawling creepers, crawling animals. Then in the process of evolution, first appearance of life form, according to our scientists as well as scholars, the fish. It appears, fish, crocodiles and other such living beings appear. They essentially live in water. Then from water they migrate to the land. And in land we find snakes, so many other forms of life. And then comes the animal kingdom. The orangutan, the chimpanzee, etc. And out of the animal kingdom, the next process of evolution is Homo sapien, man. Modern science also accepts this process of evolution. Our ancestors discovered it long back. And they gave it even in our Puranas. We have got the Dashavatara concept. Matsya, first form of life. Then Kurma, amphibian, that lives in water as well as earth. Then gradually the process of evolution advances, comes to the animal stage, Varaha. And from Varaha, from animal to the Homo sapien, there is an intermediary stage, half man, half animal. Narasimha, that is half man, half animal stage. Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, Narasimha. And afterwards, the Homo sapien appears. Our ancient scriptures have named that Homo sapien appropriately as Va-mana. Mana means mind or reason. Man is endowed with reason. Last time in the lecture I said, even the animals sometimes they exhibit rational understanding, etc. But it is completely evolved only in human being. Rationally analyzing analytical brain, it is only endowed to the man. So Va-mana means one who is endowed with that mental, rational thinking capacity. Man is a rational animal. In the modern Aristotle said, but it was known to our Vedic seers, so they called him Va-mana. Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, Narasimha, Va-mana. And then once the mental faculties are evolved, the willpower develops. That willpower in our Hindu scriptures, it is represented as Parashurama, one who has got the will to do anything and everything. Where there is will, there is a way, there is a saying in English. In Parashurama Avatara, we find Jamadagni, his father, asking him to behead his mother. At that time, Parashurama, Matru Devo Bhava, how can I do that? Then Jamadagni says, I will give you a boon if you do that. Then Parashurama agreed, and according to that agreement, he beheaded the mother. And then Jamadagni asked, what boon do you want? He said, you asked me to behead the mother, I have done it. Now I want my mother back. So that means if you have got will, you can conquer any sort of circumstances. So from mind, reason and willpower arises. Man is endowed with mind, rational thinking and willpower, etc. What is the next evolute? What makes him a full-fledged human being? It is moral and ethical values, virtues. After willpower, virtues develop. So that is Rama Avatara. Rama is called Maryada Purushottama. Maryada in Sanskrit, it means the discipline, the virtues that we have to observe in our day-to-day life. We found that Rama was an ideal son, ideal king, ideal enemy, ideal husband, ideal brother. In all respects, he was an ideal, Maryada Purushottama. So, he arises. Parashurama, then Rama. What is the next avatara? Man is endowed with reason, will, etc. Balarama avatara. Balarama is supposed to be the elder brother of Sri Krishna. The significance of Balarama is that man, with all his capabilities, he produces wealth, he produces means of livelihood, not only for himself, but also for all beings. Balarama comes with that axe, battle axe. Axe is used for creative purpose, tilling the land. So, capacity to produce wealth means that is symbolized in Balrama. Once the wealth is produced, there is society, equal distribution of the wealth for all the beings. The Vedic rishis were very emphatic that Isha Vasyamidham Sarvam Yatkinja Jagatyam Jagata Tena Tyakthena Bunjita Ma Gruta Kasya Siddhanam. The Vedic rishis very categorically proclaimed that all that you see around, it is not yours. Man cannot arrogate that he is superior to all other beings and everything must be under his control. So the Vedic Rishi, he plucked that egoistic consciousness of man and proclaimed, Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam. All these are created by God. Tena Tyakthena Bunjita. You take only that which is required for your sustenance. Our Vedic way of life, Hindu way of life is very emphatic. Wealth is meant for the entire society, not for my own sake. So, Tena Tyakthena Bunjita. Whatever you need for your sustenance, you take it. Ma Gruta Kasya Siddhanam. Don't usurp other man's property, the other beings' property. They have a right to live and the whole universe is meant for them. That is why in our Hindu way of life, we find the highest spiritual personality, the group in the Hindu society, we call them Brahmanas. Why we call them Brahmanas? It is not the caste system. A Brahmana means the one whose mind always revels in the highest reality in spiritual existence. We find that many of the rishis, they are born in the tribal society. Some of them are Kshatriyas, some of them are Sudras. From the lowest classes, they have emerged and they have become Brahmanas. Valmiki was a hunter and he became the highest Brahmin of the land. He gave us the Ramayana. So that means people belonging to all Varnas, we will come to the Varnasrama Dharma later, all have a right to become a Brahmana. Once they evolve into a Brahmin, their life is disciplined. They live a humble and simple life in a cottage, ashram, in a forest cottage or hermitage. They live, they distribute everything to all the people. They don't usurp other man's property. Such a life is prescribed for the highest Brahmin. So, in the process of evolution, I may be born as a Shudra, I may work hard and amass money and keep it. As a Kshatriya, I may own everything as a Raja. But the ultimate goal of life, as we saw last time, to evolve into a spiritual being. That is Brahmana. It is not a Brahmin caste, a man who is evolved. So they gave us such a way of life. An ordinary man from the humblest, simplest method of life, he can slowly evolve and reach the highest, the pinnacle of human existence, Brahmana. Why? Because once he reaches that pinnacle, he has no worldly attachments. His mind is totally involved in the contemplation and meditation and realization of that ultimate reality. Last time we saw that realization, self-realization, it is not going to a heaven as the other religions say. We do not believe that there is a heaven. We call it Kailasa or Vaikuntha, but they are all symbolic representations. In the outer space, there is no such place where we are going to. From here, we are not going to there. That Kailasa or Vaikuntha we are going to realize in ourselves, in our own consciousness. So, we have to evolve to that highest self-consciousness. That is the goal of life. They gave us the Hindu way of life. And they classified the different stages. It is Janmana Jayade Shudraha. Nobody is born as a Brahmin or a Kshatriya or a Vaishya. This present day caste system, it has no support from our Vedic rishis. Janmana Jayate Shudraha. I am just a human being. From out of animal realm, I have evolved into a human realm. Then Karmena Dvijaha. Gradually, by my actions, by my thinking and everything, I evolved into Dvija. Dvija means Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. They are all called Dvijas. Why they are called Dvijas? Because they are initiated into a particular way of life by a preceptor or a great rishi or somebody. And that initiation ceremony, Upanayanam. Upanayanam means leading towards that goal or leading to the master. So that Upanayanam is done and they learn everything from the great rishis. The Vedas, there is a story that Indra and other gods, they went to the preceptor, Prajapati. For some time, they lived with him. They learned from him that Isha Vasamidam Sarvam, the whole world is manifestation of God and everything is for our enjoyment, Tektena Bhunjida. So those who are attached to the world and indulged only in enjoying the world, they became the Shudras. But those, in the second stage, it is said that Indra and others, they were not satisfied because the first when they went to the Prajapati told him that all that you see around, that is manifestation of God. But some people accepted it and they remained as the ordinary Shudras. But Indra was not prepared to accept that. He said, these experiences that we see in the world, we see through our senses, our ears, nose, all these sensual organs, they give us the knowledge of the external world. But when we go into deep sleep or dream state, this world of experience vanishes. Suppose if I start sleeping here, everything disappears. I am in a different world. I will be seeing many people there in the dream. Everything around me, it has no influence on me. So it is a different experience. So Indra goes to Prajapati again. He says, Master, I am not satisfied with your explanation that all that we see around, it is the manifestation of God. But when we go into sleep, then Prajapati says, yes, that which you see in the sleep, that is also manifestation of God. God means consciousness. It is consciousness which appears as dreams in us. Whatever we have in our subconscious mind, in our dream they all come. Our old friends, our forefathers who have departed, they all come in our dream. Indra returned. For another 12 years he waited. But again, he was dissatisfied. All that we see in the mind, it all disappears. There is no meaning at all. Everything disappears. When I wake up, all that I see in the dream, it disappears. Then Prajapati smiles and says, yes, correct. What you see in the dream, that also vanishes. What? When you wake up, you become conscious of yourself, isn't it? I am here, I am sitting here, I am conscious of myself. In the dream world, I was not conscious. Even the mosquito bite, I was not experiencing. But when I wake up, awakening, that creates consciousness. So Prajapati teaches him, gradually withdrawing the mind from the worldly moorings, then our imaginary thoughts, our desires, aspirations, etc., they all appear as our dreams. Getting rid of all these worldly desires and aspirations, etc., and evolving to a higher level to realize the consciousness. That is the goal of life. And therefore, they gave us these various stages of life in which we have to progress. This is the Hindu way of life. They made clear mention of three entities: God, world, soul. God is the ultimate reality. And we all live in this world. And I am the person who enjoys this world. So I have got a soul. Without that soul, I cannot enjoy this world. What is the relationship between all these? We found that consciousness or God, it has created the world. And I live in this world. And my mind probes into the mystery of this world and arrives at the consciousness. So God, world, soul. They very emphatically proclaimed that God realization is not going and sitting by the side of a God, Vaikuntha or Kailasa, go and sit by the side of Vishnu or sitting by the side of Shiva. That is not God realization. Realizing Vishnu or Shiva within yourself, that is God realization. And you have to do it here in this world. They gave us the different stages of life. In the first, foremost stage of life, as a child, I am innocent. My only world is my mother, her lap, my father. But gradually I evolve. I see people around, I see animals around, I see things around. I get attached to the world of objects. Then from there I have to be led to a higher realm. Who will lead me? The parents put the boy under the care of a guru. It is Gurukula. They take him to a preceptor. A preceptor is a man of realization. A guru is one who has realized the highest self. So, Upanayanam, he is taken to him. And the life of the student in the Gurukula, that is called Brahmacharya. Charanam means movement. Brahmacharya means walking towards that ultimate reality which is called Brahman. So gradually the teacher, he imparts the knowledge. First he imparts the knowledge of material sciences, physics, chemistry, mathematics, biology, Dhanurvidya, Ayurveda, all Shastra Vidya. These are all imparted. These are needed for my development, physical, mental and intellectual development. All this knowledge is needed for my existence in this world. So this knowledge, preliminary knowledge is given to him, but that is not the complete knowledge. From this knowledge of the material things and material world, etc., gradually he is taken to the higher realm of knowledge. Upanishad. Nishad is the goal, Upa is taking towards the goal. There the spiritual science starts. Who you are, where from you are. Kastvam koham kuta ayataha. Who are you? Who am I? Where from you have come? Where are you going? Kame janani kome tadaha. I know my father, I know mother, etc. But where from I have come? Who is my father? Who is my mother? So gradually the spiritual evolution starts. That evolution takes place during the Grahastha life. He gets, after Brahmacharya, after getting all the knowledge from the master, he gets married because he has to discharge, he has to exhaust all the ego and egocentric desires in him, attachment to wife, children, etc., natural people. So gradually he gets into married life, sets up family, etc. The children are born, he earns and sustains them. All these worldly activities are going on. But it is only for a particular period. He has to go for a higher goal. So once the children are grown up and they are able to stand on their own leg, he gradually withdraws from the worldly life. More on contemplation, meditation, sadhana, etc. It is called vanaprastha. In the ancient period, the rishis had set up abodes in distant forest areas, free from the busy city life or family life or town life, calm, quiet, because there won't be any attraction. If I sit here and start doing meditation, the next door neighbor, he may play his radio, music will be there, another side, TV will be there. So much distractions will be there when I am in the worldly moorings. So gradually I have to keep myself away from all these worldly moorings, sit in a small, humble cottage, isolated place, no disturbance at all. There I can sit and meditate, and therefore they set up the forest hermitages. That stage is called vanaprastha. Prastha means going, moving. From the worldly life, I move into the life in a forest hermitage. Sometimes the wife also goes along with the husband because she is partner even in the spiritual life. They live in the vanaprastha life. And once the highest realization occurs, that is called samadhi. Samadhi means where everything culminates, ends. When that end comes, even the attachment to the wife and all that vanaprastha life, everything, but in the vanaprastha I may be doing puja or homa or havan or all these things. Once I reach that highest state of sannyasa, even this is given up. These are all external things. Why should I do all these puja, panaskara and all these things? Because mind is always concentrated in that ultimate reality. That is called samyak nyasam. I give up everything. I give up all activities. I don't stay in a place for more than 3 days. A sannyasi is supposed not to stay in a place for more than 3 days. I will be always on the motion. So the highest form of life, sannyasa, it comes. And in that sannyasa state, in my contemplation, meditation, when it reaches the peak, I give up the physical body. That is samadhi. My samadhi is end, culmination. That is what it means. So samadhi, he gives up the physical body, but he is not dead. The great masters, when they attain the samadhi, they are given jiva samadhi. They are buried in a pit. And even in the jiva samadhi, they live. Many people have experienced, for example, Bhagavan Nama Bodhendra in Tamil Nadu, Nerur, Bodhendra. If you go there, from the Jiva Samadhi, you hear Om Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Om Shri Ram, Jai Ram. That sound is emanating. Whether it is your internal feeling or the sound emanating, nobody has cleared, but everybody has experienced it. In the Jiva Samadhi, there are some vibrations. It creates changes in you when you go to them. So, that is the state of a fully realized person. Hinduism is a way of life for such an ultimate reality. Realizing the reality. God, world, soul, and this real realization, mukti, attaining the samadhi, jivan mukti, my mind, consciousness pins itself with that ultimate reality. I remain there. Videha Mukti, I get out of the physical body. I given Jivan Mukta, a sannyasi is a Jivan Mukta, but when he attains Samadhi, it is Videha Mukti. Videha means getting out of the physical body. Mukti, the ultimate realization, he reaches. So, Hindu way of life is from material, mundane material existence to that highest state of realization. Our whole Hindu way of life has been influenced, as we saw last time, by the geographical conditions of the place of our birth. Now I am born in this land. I didn't come from sky. I am born here. This land of my birth, we call it Punya Bhumi, Karma Bhumi, Moksha Bhumi, because we have to do our sadhana here in this land. So, the land of birth, it is, according to Hindus, the place of our sadhana. We are not going to live permanently in this house or the earth or in the country or in the town, or we have to depart from everything. But this is the place of our sadhana. And all that we see around, they influence our way of life. Our great ancestors, they gave significance to everything that we see around. Last time we said Himalaya Arabhya Yavodindu Sarovara Paryantam Tam Devanarmitam Desham Hindustanam Pratakshade. They called it Hindustan, the land of the Hindus. Himalaya, the mighty mountain. That Himalaya symbolically represents the highest pinnacle that we have reached. Kailasa or Manasarovar. Manasarovar means the lake of mind, the highest supreme consciousness. That is called Manasarovar. It is in the Himalayas. So there is a Mansarovar. People go today on pilgrimage, bordering China. It is still there. And Kailas is there, Mount Kailas is all there. We have. But these geographical areas, territories, they symbolically represent some higher goal. And similarly, the rivers coming down from the Himalayas, Ganga, Sindhu, Yamuna, Saraswati, Reva, Mahanadi, Goda, Brahmaputra, all the rivers in our land, these are called Sapta Sindhu. Bharatavarsha is called Sapta Sindhu Bhumi, the land of seven great. Sindhu means water. Sapta Sindhu means seven great waters. All the rivers, Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati, they are all considered as holy rivers. Why? Because as a human being, I need food. I have to produce food. And where will I produce the food? It is on the banks of rivers. Water is necessary for producing food. So the banks of rivers, they have become the cradles of my civilization. Right from my birth till my extinction, I am sustained by Mother Earth. This earth gives me food. And the earth drives the capacity to give me food from the water, from the rivers. In our Vedic way of life, a peasant, before applying the axe to the earth for creation, in the Vedas we find hymns. He chants the Vedic mantras, chants, and then only, that is called Bhumi Puja. He does the Bhumi Puja and then starts tilling. If you want to construct a house for staying, you do the Bhumi Puja. So adoration and worship of Mother Earth and adoration and worship of the rivers. They give us life. We give water, and water is life. So we call them mothers. They sustain us. Ganga Mata, Kaveri Mata, Yamuna Mata, all these are called mothers. So adoration and worship of nature around us, symbolically representing them as various forms of deities or gods to be worshipped, it becomes part and parcel of Hindu way of life. A Hindu way of life envisages this. The mountains, they have got a great significance. Apart from pointing out the highest goal, our contemplation, meditation, etc., in the Vanaprastha Asrama, I said it is in the mountain areas. You go to the Himalayas, or you go to Arunachala, or you go to this hill or that hill, isolated place. So these are seeds of gods. Great deities are installed there in the mountain areas. Worship of deities in the mountain, it is considered to be a very auspicious thing for the Hindus. We go to Tirupati, or we go to Tirutani, or we go to Mount Kailas, because all these are abodes of gods. There, our mind is elevated to a higher plane. So adoration of mountains, adoration of rivers, all these form part of our life. This Hindu way of life, it has evolved through millions of years. Everything is symbolic. The great masters in their highest genius, they gave everything as symbolic so that our mind will concentrate on that. But the ultimate purpose is God realization. So geographical influence in Hindu way of life is very much the mountains, the rivers. Not only that, even the trees and plants. We adore Ashwatha Vriksha. We adore Bel tree. We adore this tree, that tree. They not only give us shelter, they also represent, for example, the banyan tree. It is the mightiest, strongest among the trees. It represents our willpower to develop ourselves to the highest might. So we adore and worship a banyan tree. We adore and worship a Bel tree. And apart from these, there are creepers, there are plants. They are all life-sustaining. Tulasi, we all know, according to Ayurveda, Tulasi is one of the best medicinal plants. Like that, Gudichi, Shindal Kodi. Usually when we do Havan, especially people affected by cancer, if they use this Gudichi creeper, cut it into small bits, dry it and put it in the Havan, it cures cancerous infection. In my personal experience, Mother Mai of Kanyakumari, she led me to that. For 108 days, I went to the market, I got that Gudichi Samit, I brought it, I cut it into pieces, and every day morning with the Trayambaka mantra, Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarugamiva Bandhanad Mrityor Mukshiyam Amrita, chanting the Trayambaka mantra, I used to do that Havan, Gudichi Havan. So that creeper is considered a sacred creeper because it sustains the medicinal power out of the smoke of Gudichi. It cures the cancer. Modern science has accepted that. Ayurveda, it is a very important product. So all these we adore and worship. We worship cow because next to mother's milk, right from my childhood, it is the milk of the cow that sustains me. And therefore, throughout my life, I adore and worship her as Gomata, Kamadhenu. Kamadhenu means that which fulfills all my desires, sustains me. And therefore, adoration and worship of the animals, birds, creepers, trees, everything that we find in nature, for a Hindu, they are all sacred. So this sort of way of life, in Islam or Christianity, they don't worship Tulasi, they don't worship a cow, they don't worship a tree, because for them the God is only in the heaven. And they have to go to the church and do their prayer, or go to the mosque and do the prayer. No other way to reach the God. But for us, everything is manifestation of that ultimate reality. So it comes down to the truth that God is only symbolic to a Hindu. Why I have got Rama, Krishna, Vishnu, Shiva? For the purpose of concentration. When I contemplate, meditate on the sustaining aspect, Mother sustains me. So I consider Durga Mata. Always I contemplate and meditate. My father takes care of me. I contemplate and meditate on Lord Shiva or Vishnu, the one who sustains. So these are all symbolic representations. And our Vedic rishis were very clear. Even your Matru Devo Bhava, Pitru Devo Bhava, Acharya Devo Bhava, the mother who has given you life, she is God. The father who sustains you, he is God. The Guru who elevates you to a higher plane of consciousness, he is God. So we see God everywhere. That is Hindu way of life. It is different from other religions. In Hinduism, the great Acharyas, they founded Vaishnavism, Shaivism, Shaktam, Ganapatyam, Kaumaram, Bauddham. Sikh is also a manifestation of Hinduism. Guru Nanak and Guru Govind Singh. All these religions, Buddhism, Jainism, these are all developments of various paths of adoration and worship. But put together, all of these combined together, they become the Hindu way of life. So everybody is a Hindu, a Buddhist is a Hindu. Dalai Lama has proudly proclaimed, he came to our Vishwa Hindu Parishad when we founded the Vishwa Hindu Parishad on Krishnashtami day in Santibini Sadhanalaya, Swami Chinmayananda's ashram. Sardar, that Sikh Guru was there, Buddhism was represented by Dalai Lama, and Acharya Tulasi, he represented Jainism. All of them joined together for founding the Vishwa Hindu Parishad. It is not only the Hindus, all the people joined together. So that means we are all part and parcel of this Hindu way of life, comprehensive way of life. So Hinduism, I conclude, is not a religion in the sense of that word in the Western concept. It is a way of life. For us, religion is just an instrument, is a means for self-realization. And it is said, Yatra Veda Avedaha. Once you reach the highest pinnacle, the Veda becomes meaningless. Why should I sit and study Rig Veda or Yajurveda or sit and sing Samaveda? It is not necessary. A highest realized person gives up everything. Yatra Veda Avedaha. It's no more a field of knowledge for him because he has attained the highest. So, worship of God, rites, rituals, scripture study, these are all only for an ultimate goal. They are not the ultimate end. They are only means for reaching the highest goal. This is Hindu way of life. So Hinduism as a way of life, it is influenced by the geographical territory, and all our religious preceptors, whether it is Shankara, Ramanuja, Madhva, they have all given us different visions of that ultimate reality. For example, Shankara, he spoke about Advaita. The Veda teaches about the oneness of everything. Advaitam. Dvaitam means different, non-difference. That is Advaitam. He preached Advaita philosophy. Then Ramanuja came. He felt that for an ordinary man who has not evolved to the highest realm, Advaita is useless. A man who is attached to the world, a man who is in the worldly moorings, etc., for him Advaita is useless. Why? Because it may lead him to arrogance. If we say that I am God, Aham Brahmasmi, the Vedic rishis proclaimed, the highest realization, I am that Brahman. Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma. Everything that you see around is nothing but Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi. Tattvamasi. That thou art. The ultimate reality is your. These are all Vedic Mahavakyas. Tattvamasi. Aham Brahmasmi. Sarvam Khalvidam Brahmam. I am Atma Brahma. They very categorically pointed out. This is the highest realization. But without realizing that, if I say Aham Brahmasmi, I am God, I am the Supreme, it leads to arrogance. So Ramanuja, in his wisdom, he felt that this is not the time for us to teach that ultimate philosophy. We have to tone down. And therefore he preached Vishishta Advaitam. That ultimate reality is there. But you are only a manifestation of that. You cannot arrogate yourself that you are the supreme being. You are the supreme God. So, he said, Amsha Amshi Bhava. Yajamana and Dasa. I mean, Amsha Amshi. He is the whole, full. And you are only Amshi means part. So, God, Vishnu in Sanskrit means that which is spread everywhere, that which is all pervasive. So, Vishnu or consciousness, he is full, and this Jivatma, it is only an infinitesimal part of that ultimate consciousness. So, you are the devotee. So, Vishishta Advaita. Everything is God, he agreed. But that ultimate reality you cannot, as long as you are not self-realized, you cannot call yourself as God. So that was Vishishta Advaita. Madhva came, he even felt that this concept of I am part of God, even that, it should not be there. Therefore, he preached that God is supreme, I am only his servant. Dasa, Dasi. Dasa or Yajamana. He is Yajamana means that to whom we pray, to whom we appeal, Yajna, we perform Yaja, Yajna to him. He is that supreme Lord, and I am only his servant, Dasa. That's why Madhvas, they call themselves as Dasas. We are Dasanu Dasas. We are only servants. We cannot even arrogate that we are part of God. He is supreme, I am the servant. Last time I told you the story from Ramayana where Hanuman, when Rama asked Hanuman, what do you think of me? He says, when I am here, you are my Lord and I am your servant, I am your Dasa. But when I realize that everything is all pervasive and you only, Sarvam Sarve Ramante iti Ramaha, that which revels everywhere is Rama. So I am also a part of yours, and therefore from that point of view, I am Amsha of you. And when I reach the highest consciousness, I am not different from you. I and you are one. That's why he jovially said that Sita is pressing only my leg when Sita was pressing Rama's leg. So this gradual evolution, way of life, the great Acharyas, they presented in the various forms of religions, Shaivism, Vaishnavism, Shaktam, Ganapatyam, Kaumaram, and these philosophies, systems of philosophy, and the theory of evolution also they had presented. I told about the Sankhya theory and Sankhya, Yoga, Purva Mimsa, Mimamsa, Uttara Mimamsa, and Nyaya, Vaisheshika. Nyaya is logic first. Everything we have to rationally conclude. And when we rationally conclude, there should be some logic. That logic, Nyaya Shastra, I cannot blindly come to any conclusion. In the Nyaya Shastra, Gautama evolved the Nyaya Shastra. There, he gives an example. I see smoke there. Where from the smoke comes? Because there is fire, the smoke comes out of it. So there is a relationship between the smoke and the fire. So that logical, rational thinking, that from out of fire, smoke comes, that is Nyaya Shastra. Then Vaisheshika. I said that everything is manifestation of consciousness. Consciousness, even modern science has accepted, it manifests in the form of atoms, gradually evolves. The combination of atoms, I explained, Akashat, Vayu, Vayu, Agni, Agni, Apa, Prithvi, the formation of the universe, I explained. It is because of the combination of atoms. Everything that we feel, whether this book, the table, the chair, all these are manifestation of these 5 elements. Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Apa, Prithvi. All these are combined in everything that we see around us. Panchabhudamayam Vishwam. The whole world is made up of these 5 elements. Whether it is tree or creeper or book or anything. All these that we see around us, these 5 elements are combined in that. So, these elements, Panchabhudamayam, evolution of these elements, how they combine together and how the world is formed, that is Vaisheshika. So, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, then Sankhya theory of evolution, how gradually everything emerges, process of evolution. Modern theories of evolution, Newton's theory of evolution and Darwin's theory of evolution, they were all envisaged by the great masters. So that theory of evolution, Sankhya theory of Kapila, the great Rishi, gave us that Sankhya. And then, out of all this Vedic wisdom, the great Rishis gave us the Vedas. As I told you, the Vedas, they consist of Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda. Karma Kanda is the various theories of performing Havan, Puja, this thing, action. For spiritual upliftment, I have to perform some symbolic acts, Karma Kanda, and then I reach the highest Upanishadic wisdom, Jnana Kanda. So, Purva Mimamsa is Karma Kanda and Uttara Mimamsa is Jnana Kanda. So, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga. What is Yoga? After the Sankhya theory of evolution, Patanjali gave us the Yoga Sutras. What is Yoga Sutra? I have to realize God. How am I going to realize? My mind is going to realize God. So my mind is to be pinned to that ultimate reality. So Patanjali gave Yoga, Chitta, Vritti, Nirodhanam. Control of your mental modulations and concentrating on that ultimate reality, that is yoga. Yoga, Chitta, Vritti, Nirodhanam. That's what Patanjali Yoga Sutra. And once you reach that, with that concentration of mind, you perform all Havan, Puja, everything, whatever you do, the mind concentrates. When you are doing the havan, your attention is not anywhere else. When you are doing the puja, your attention is not anywhere else. So concentrating, Purva Mimamsa, Uttara Mimamsa, and finally you reach that highest realization, self-realization, Advaita sadhana, that Upanishadic knowledge, wisdom. So these are the basic concepts of Hindu way of life. In no other religion you find all these things. Whether it is Christianity, Islam or other Semitic religions, they simply presuppose a God, a way of life, and they believe that once you die, you are buried, and on the doomsday, God will sit in the heaven, He will call, awaken one by one, and according to your deserts, your good actions or bad actions, He will give you heaven or hell. These are all beliefs of people in the Semitic religion. We do not believe in such a God sitting in the heaven and summoning us and examining our karmas and giving us hell or heaven. We also have Surga, and we have also got the concept of Naraga. But it is not the Surga of Semitic religion, it is not the Naraga of Semitic religion. Our great rishis, they said, you create your own Surga, you create your own Naraga. If you live a perfect life, you enjoy the highest consciousness. Otherwise, you become a Rakshasa. Naraga is the place of Rakshasas. Why? Because Rakshasas are wedded to material life, worldly life. They don't have higher values, virtues. So either you become a Rakshasa or you become a Deva. Deva means, Diva means light. One who has realized the light, you become Deva and you are in the heaven. Otherwise, you are a Rakshasa and you are in the hell. But Surga and Naraga are here only. We create our Surga, Naraga. So this is the Hindu way of life preached by our great Vedic seers. Now, in the coming lectures, we will see the Vedas, the Upanishads, how they expound gradually all these theories, Vedic concept of God, various Vedic concept of Brahman, and all these things in detail. We will see Vedas and Upanishads first, and then we will go the representation of the Vedas and Upanishads in our Dharma Shastras, Ramayana, Mahabharata, epics and other things. And then we will go into these Dharma Shastras, various religions, Vaishnavam, Saivam, Shaktam, Bauddham, Ganapatyam, Kaumaram, Sikhism, and then these various theories of Sankhya, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, Purva Mimamsa, Uttara Mimamsa, that also we will see. And then ultimately we will come to our modern period. All this gamut of philosophy, the entire amount of philosophy in the modern period, our great geniuses in our land, Rajaram Mohan Roy was influenced by the Vedas, Maharshi Dayananda was influenced by our ancient scriptures. All these people, they evolved various ways of adoration and worship. Rajaram Mohan Roy's Prarthana Samaja and Arya Samaj of Dayananda, all these, how the modern period, our geniuses, our spiritual leaders have evolved, that we will see ultimately in the end of the course. So now, from next class onwards, we will be entering into the text proper. All the last class and this class, I just gave you only an overall view of Hindu way of life, what we are going to study through the Vijnana Bharati course. In the coming classes, we will go deep into each aspect of this Hindu way of life. Jai Sri Ram, Vande Mataram, Bharat Mata Ki Jai.